Meantime, on the Crime Watch tonight, police releasing new details today on a shooting that left 2 people dead near Closter Park in Salinas.
It comes as friends and family make a desperate plea for anyone with information to come forward and help lead police to the killers. We get the latest on the investigation from Action News 8 reporter Felix Cortez.
A grieving mother, Alma Villa, says she had 2 sons. Now she only has 1. After gunmen killed her son, Jesus Villa, and his girlfriend, Karina Vargas, as they sat in their car Saturday night on the 300 block of Tout Street in Salinas.
Nunca va a ser igual. Ya nuestra vida ya no va a ser igual sin él.
Nothing will be the same. Our lives won't be the same without him, cried Villa's mother and aunt. 22-year-old Jesus Villa was an aspiring boxer. Here he is, knocking out an opponent 2 years ago in Mexico. He trained at this boxing club in Closter Park, just steps from where he was shot to death.
Jesus was a good guy. I mean, he was a boxer, athlete, always in the gym, always trying to better himself, and not even just physically, mentally, trying to become a better person. So it just doesn't make sense that somebody would come and try to take his life.
Villa's girlfriend, Karina Vargas, was a student at CSU Monterey Bay, set to graduate this May with a bachelor's degree in kinesiology.
A young girl that was going to graduate here in a couple of months in May on her bachelor's degree. She gets killed. She was really looking forward to have a great life, and it was taken from her.
Police say the victims had no gang ties or affiliation, which makes it more difficult to understand why they were targeted. Investigators putting all available resources to find their killers.
If you know something, say something. I mean, it's messed up. I mean, good things like this shouldn't happen to good people, genuine people, people that motivate other people, people that want to see people do good. That shouldn't happen to people like that.
Salinas police want to hear from anyone who may have information regarding this case, and they remind you, you can choose to remain anonymous. Reporting from Salinas, Felix Cortez, KSBW, Action News 8.
I'm on the Crime Watch tonight. The 2 cousins accused of killing a couple as they sat in their car near Closter Park in Salinas have pleaded not guilty to murder charges. The 2 have been charged with 2 counts of murder each for the shooting deaths earlier this month. Prosecutor says her office is considering filing special circumstances against the men, which could turn this case into a capital murder case. Both are due back in court next month.
On the Crime Watch, Salinas police are investigating a shooting that left 2 dead last night. Action News 8's Ariana Hasso spoke with friends and family of the victims and brings us the story from East Salinas.
Still unbelievable. Still can't. I don't know how to feel. He really didn't deserve it.
A Salinas community is mourning following a gruesome double homicide that happened Saturday night. Salinas police say around 8:20 they were called out after reports of shots fired on the corner of Tout and Grand Haven Streets in East Salinas. When they arrived, they found a man and a woman suffering from gunshot wounds. Neither survived. One mourner who did not want to be identified says the victims were his best friend and his friend's girlfriend.
They were about to be 3 years together.
The 2 in the wrong place at the wrong time.
He was waiting to get some jumper cables for my friend. That's when everything happened. He showed up and he saw him there laying in his car.
Salinas police have released few details on the case, but friends of the couple say the 2 were not gang affiliated and that their killing was senseless, adding that if there were more resources, maybe there would be less violence in the neighborhood.
This is where everything comes down. You know, this is our future right here.
Investigators have not released the names of the victims, but friends say the man was a beloved member of the Closter Park boxing community.
It helped him stay out of trouble, the boxing, community centers like that, and I feel like if there was more around, it could have changed the story. I mean, he was a good, like, honest, one of the realest persons I ever knew.
Friends and family left with many unanswered questions.
We don't know how that could have happened. It's still unbelievable to us. We just hope the police do their job.
Ariana Hasso reporting. KSPW Action News 8 has made multiple requests for comment from the Salinas Police Department, but our calls have gone unanswered.
There is a guilty verdict in for a deadly shooting out of Salinas. Gonzalo and Jose Echeverria have been on trial for the deadly shooting of 2 people at Closter Park 2 years ago. The cousins had pleaded not guilty. They are accused of shooting and killing Jose Villa and Karina Vargas in a case of mistaken identity. Action News 8 reporter Felix Cortez is live at the courthouse where that verdict was just handed down. Felix, what more are you learning?
Well, Paul, this was a very quick verdict. After less than roughly 90 minutes of deliberations, the jury came back this morning finding both those cousins, Jose and Gonzalo Echeverria, guilty of first-degree murder, as you mentioned, in the shooting death of Jesus Villa and Karina Vargas back in February of 2022. Now, this was a violent shooting. The two were simply sitting in a car by Closter Park talking when the cousins came up to him, opened fire on them with a semi-automatic firearm, killing them instantly. Police at the time had said that the two were not the intended targets of this senseless act of violence, but rather it was a case of mistaken identity. Those cousins arrested just days later for that brutal slaying of the two. And what helped the prosecution in this case was a confession, a videotaped confession from the younger cousin, Gonzalo, which was played for the jury during this roughly 1-week trial that went very quickly. That was played for the jury, in which they heard Gonzalo Echeverria confess to those murders of the two in Closter Park in February of 22. Probably likely what led to this very quick verdict in roughly 90 minutes of deliberation. The jury just started deliberating this morning, came back around 10 o'clock with those guilty verdicts, first-degree guilty verdicts for cousins Jose and Gonzalo Echeverria. They will be sentenced separately, one in June, the other one in July, both of them facing life in prison without the possibility of parole. We hope to hear from the defense, the prosecution. In this case, we'll have much more on this developing story tonight on Action News 8 at 5 and 6. Reporting from the Salinas Courthouse, I'm Felix Cortez. Paul, back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you, Felix. Appreciate your reporting for us live from Salinas. And as Felix mentioned, the shooting happened on the evening of February 5th, 2022. Jose Villa and Karina Vargas were sitting in their cars when they were shot and killed. The shooters then drove away and were arrested over a week later. The community came together at the time, rallying around one another after the shooting, people holding vigils and making memorials. Jesus Villa was a 22-year-old aspiring boxer. He trained at the boxing club in Closter Park near where he was killed. He was dating 23-year-old Karina Vargas, a student at Cal State Monterey Bay, who was set to graduate with a bachelor's in kinesiology. Of course, we'll have a whole lot more on today's verdict coming up tonight on Action News 8 at 5 and 6. You can stay up to date both on air and online at our website, kspw.com.
Hey, what's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Green Lake Gang TV. I appreciate you guys checking out the channel. Man, been fighting some of these YouTube guidelines. I got one good video I'm trying to get out right now, and I thought I was able to upload it. I'm still waiting on the review process. So anyway, doesn't matter. Not going to slow me down. Love making these. We're going to be going to Salinas, California. We're going to go back a couple years to the night of February 5th, 2022. And the brutal murders of Karina Chavez Vargas, 23 years old, and their boyfriend Jesus Arias Villa, 22 years old, who by all accounts were completely innocent victims of Sureno gang members. Cousins Gonzalo Echeverria, 24 years old, and Jose Echeverria, 32. Cousins, known gang members, very active criminal history for both of them. Closter Park is in Salinas, California. Karina and Jesus, they were sitting in a car parked across the street from Closter Park. You got to understand, these two, we'll call them kids, they're young. They were beloved, okay? A lot of friends, a lot of family. You see that in the news stories. Jesus was a boxer, a very prominent boxer in the community, was going places. They both worked very hard, worked good jobs. And it was sad. The cousins get arrested about 9-10 days after the crime. And according to the police commander at the time, James Arensdorf, there was no I was about to say surveillance. No, there's a lot of surveillance evidence. There were no eyewitnesses to the crime. Okay. But detectives gathered over 300 gigabytes of surveillance video footage, about 1,000 hours of video from homes and businesses around the area. Detectives at the time identified a white Nissan Altima that fit the description of a light-colored sedan leaving the scene in the video. They were able to identify the Echeverria cousins. And you got to remember, these guys have a long criminal history. It fits. On February 11th, Salinas police served 3 search warrants. Gonzalo Echeverria was taken to Monterey County Jail the same day. 4 days later, his cousin Jose Echeverria was arrested as well. Arensdorf said the investigation is still ongoing, but added that police didn't believe there were many more people involved in the murder. Monterey District Attorney Janine Piccone issued a statement condemning the, quote, soft-on-crime attitude by our California executive branch and legislature. And for those of you who don't know, if you're in California, comment below. California, I'm not in California, but I feel like California is in a lot of unrest because there are a lot of very soft-on-crime laws right now. And crime's pretty high in California. And when things like this happen, this is when politics come into play. When innocent people get killed, when it's gang on gang, yes, people are upset. Got to stop the violence. But when 2 innocent kids sitting in a car on a date and like the friend said on the news camera, waiting for some jumper cables, get murdered by known gang members, and one that they said was let out of prison way too early, people are going to be upset. People are going to be pissed. She noted that Gonzalo, and this is what she says, right? The district attorney said Gonzalo Echeverria had 2 previous convictions, including possession of a loaded firearm for a gang-related purpose and assisting a fellow gang member in escaping from a California Department of Corrections and Rehab facility in September of 19. Gonzalo was sentenced, and this is where people got upset, he was sentenced to serve 8 years and 4 months in state prison for 2 separate gang-related felonies. But under California's Prop 57, CDCR considered him for early parole, and he was released after only serving basically like a quarter of that time, 2 years and 4 months of that sentence, despite the DA on that case saying, no, do not let him out. Quote from Piccone, these murders are an example of the soft-on-crime laws that are being passed without thorough consideration for the impact on victims in our communities. I'll get into a little bit about the actual victims. Okay, Karina Chavez Vargas. She worked at Lowe's and a CSU Monterey-based student. I'm assuming that's a college Monterey-based student. While Arias Villa worked as a caretaker for elderly people. Their families were shocked with their murder because none of them had a criminal history. Alma Villa, Arias Villa's mom, told The Weekly her son wasn't involved with gangs or drugs. Quote, that's what hurt me the most because he didn't deserve to die that way. Quote, they were a young couple in love with absolutely zero criminal history in Salinas. And I feel bad because it's like, you know what? With a lot of these, and I'll say Hispanic or black families, when they lose loved ones that are innocent and just students or working or building towards something, I feel like they have to keep emphasizing, and they weren't in trouble. It's like, because unfortunately, people assume that. It is a racial bias. People assume, oh, it must have been gang-related. Oh, they must have been involved in drugs. Oh, they must have been in the streets. They must have been doing something, right? No, not always. They were a young couple in love with absolutely zero criminal history in Salinas. Salinas Mayor Kimberly Craig said during the press conference, adding their murder hit home for many in the city. Chavez Vargas and Arias Villa were buried on February 15th at Queen of Haven Cemetery in Salinas. On Valentine's Day, dozens of people showed up to share their support with the families and say goodbye to the young couple at Alta Vista Mortuary. At the entrance was a large cardboard box with several photos of Arias Chavez when he was a child. At the center, there were photos of the couple, and each was surrounded by a red ribbon-lined heart. Arias Villa, who wanted to be a professional boxer, also had a pair of black and white boxing gloves. Karina's Lowe's red vest with her name tag was framed. The Echeverria cousins will each be charged with 2 attempted murders and enhancements for using a firearm. I'm sure gang enhancements are coming too. Both men are citizens of El Salvador and have previously been deported. So this is all what I'm talking about, right? People get pissed. This is politics, man. This is politics. And if you don't think it isn't, you're wrong. You're wrong. According to Salinas police, Villa and Vargas were in their car when they were shot and killed. Police said they believe 2 people approached the car on foot before shooting Villa and Vargas multiple times. And we'll get into those numbers in just a sec. I got a little bit more specifics. The shooters left the area in a light-colored sedan. Later, it came back to be the Altima. Excuse me. The 2 cousins accused of killing a couple in Salinas have pleaded not guilty to murder charges. The men are charged with 2 counts of murder each. The shooting happened earlier in the month. Jesus Villa and Karina Vargas were in their car when they were shot and killed. Now, Gonzalo Echeverria, Jose Echeverria, each cousins, citizens of El Salvador, they've each been deported. All right. Now, they're facing capital murder cases in this case. All right. Kind of going on a timeline here. Thousands of hours of surveillance. Because remember, there was no actual eyewitnesses to the crime. But nowadays, that's what's so different, right? 10, 15 years ago, there wasn't. Everybody's got cameras. Everybody's got a Ring doorbell. Businesses have cameras everywhere, especially in some of these higher crime areas. It's going to happen. So, talking about the numbers, the exact numbers. On February 5th, 2022, Jesus Arias, 22, and Karina Chavez, Vargas, 23, were gunned down in their vehicle near Closter Park in Salinas. They were across the street in the parked car. Prosecutors said the couple entered their vehicle parked at the corner of Grand Haven and Tout Streets at 8:18 p.m. so Villa could drive Chavez home. However, prosecutors said the Echeverria cousins were waiting nearby, parked across the street in the dark, so they could ambush the pair. As soon as the couple settled in the car, Jose Echeverria drove to the corner and both cousins exited their vehicle and opened fire on the victim's car from behind. The 2 fired at least 18 shots into the car, with Jose Echeverria using a 9mm handgun and Gonzalo Echeverria using a rifle with .223 ammunition. So, man, dude, they came. They weren't going to miss. They came to not miss. And we're going to get into some of the motives here. Due to multiple gunshot wounds, Villa died at the scene, while Chavez died shortly after at a hospital. Villa's mother testified at the trial that she was inside her apartment and heard the shots that killed her son, which is crazy. So the son's mother heard the shots that killed her son. According to prosecutor, Jose Echeverria's vehicle was caught on multiple surveillance cameras traveling between the crime scene and Griffin Street, where he and other members of his family lived. Gonzalo Echeverria was seen exiting the vehicle around the corner from the shooting before being picked up shortly by an unknown vehicle. He admitted to his role in the crime and gave statements to undercover agents that implicated his cousin as the second shooter, police said. Gonzalo Echeverria also revealed that they intended to murder a different male who lived in the same apartment complex. They killed Villa and Chavez by mistake, with cell phone evidence helping to prove it, according to prosecutors. In May, Chavez would have graduated with a bachelor's degree in kinesiology at California State University, Monterey Bay. Now, really quick, the cousins were apparently trying to kill somebody from an event that had happened 2-3 years prior. One of their family members had been murdered, and they were attempting to get revenge. So I have a couple questions. I'm like, 2 or 3 years. It's like, okay, I mean, I want to know, was it because, one of them was locked up, one of them was deported, how long had they been out? But I'm like, man, and then it's like, that's just so reckless. And I just am like, is that really the only reason? Because they thought, yep, that's for sure him. Let's go get him. Because I'm like, dude. And I mean, obviously they brought firepower, a 9mm, a .223 rifle, which I'm assuming is like an AR-15. I mean, I just, for a retaliation, revenge killing, 2-3 years down the road after a brother was killed, I believe, I just feel like, because that's what I read, that it was a brother of one of the guys, of one of Gonzalo or Jose that had gotten killed. Now, interestingly enough, Gonzalo was the one that basically gave up the crime. So he admitted to an informant, okay? Everything. He admitted everything. And that's how police were able to basically wrap these guys up and have an airtight case against them. It all came out. Now, where we leave off and why I kind of also chose this story. They were convicted, but they haven't been sentenced, okay? It says Jose Echeverria is due to be sentenced in like 6 days, all right? And Gonzalo is due to be sentenced on July 17th, okay? And this is what I talk about with the court system, guys, all right? They got found guilty here. This article that I read about the guilty from May 30th. Shootings happened in early 2022, February of 2022, February 5th. So, I mean, a month into the new year, damn near. These guys are Sureno gang members. They're from El Salvador. They came ready to roll, packing a 9mm and a .223. You are coming to do damage. 18 shots. And I guess I just can't. I'm like, oh my God, that's so senseless. That's just crazy when you don't even know for sure. It's 8 o'clock at night. It's in February. So it's probably dark. And I just feel like there's no way. I mean, that's a good excuse. And I'm sure, the murder of our brother, they could tie it back. Okay, yep, there was a murder that was committed 3 years ago that related to these guys. Okay, it makes sense. But, man, and then I'm thinking, God, if you're the guy that they intended to kill, you're going, holy hell, man, they were super close. But anyway, yeah, crazy story. 2 Sureno gang members, man, they kill these 2 innocent kids, people that were in love, people that had a future. It's sad. You see the family members crying. It's just a waste of life all the way around. So many people get affected. And that's what one thing I'm always stricken with when I cover these cases, when I do these videos, is how many people's lives are affected by these crimes. That is one thing I will say. It is like buckshot that spreads out when these crimes are committed. The overspray, right? However many different analogies, how many different metaphors, right, I want to use. It's just crazy how many different people are affected. So anyway, there you guys have it. Hope you guys appreciate the video. I love bringing these to you guys. Again, the story of Jesus Arias Villa and Karina Chavez Vargas. Rest in peace. Keep an eye out for the sentencing of Gonzalo Echeverria and Jose Echeverria. Until next time, peace.